As polls on Tuesday open as California's special election, and for a lot of voters, Prop 50 is the only measure on the ballot. Governor Gavin Newsom calls the redistricting measure a key moment for the future of the Democratic Party. Of course, there's some opposition to this, including from California Republican Kevin Kiley, saying there's still time to vote no on 50. Polls close at 8 p.m. tomorrow. Vote no because voters, not politicians, should choose the destiny of our state. Vote no because each and every citizen deserves fair representation. Vote no because California is worth fighting for. Let's be joined right now by Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much for joining us. And obviously, you kind of laid out the message, but on the eve of this election where people going to the polls potentially just to solely vote on Prop 50, what's the message?
Yeah, you guys are pretty good. I think I just put that tweet up like 5 minutes ago.
Producer's on it.
That post, I should say. But I mean, that pretty much sums it up. In California, we have a system of fair representation where we have an independent commission where politicians have been put out of the business of no longer drawing district lines. Instead, we have an independent citizens commission do that. And I think that's the right thing because gerrymandering is wrong. When you have gerrymandering, then it's the politicians, not the voters, who have the power. And so Prop 50 is about one thing and one thing alone. It is bringing back gerrymandering to our state. It is bringing us back to the era of political gerrymandering that the voters moved us on from. It would be a regression for our democracy. And while we might not like what's going on in other states, and I believe gerrymandering is wrong wherever it occurs, we do have the opportunity to reject gerrymandering in one place in particular, and that's our own state of California. So that's why I'm voting no and encourage others to do the same.
And of course, in Texas, Nancy Pelosi said if Texas kind of pulls back on their redistricting effort, California will do the same. Do you think this is a dangerous precedent?
Well, sure. I mean, the entire logic of this is that, well, if one state does it, then another state will follow suit. But what this inevitably leads to is this race to the bottom that degrades democracy everywhere. And so what Californians are voting on tomorrow, it has nothing to do with Texas. It has nothing to do with North Carolina or Virginia or any other state. The only thing that Prop 50 will affect is our own state's elections and our own system of representation and our own ability to have a congressional map that is drawn in a way that reflects communities of interest and the interests of voters as opposed to entrenching the power of politicians. So I actually introduced a bill to say no mid-decade gerrymanders in any state in the country, and I'm going to continue pushing for that to become law. But at the end of the day, if you're against gerrymandering, the solution is not more gerrymandering, which is what Prop 50 campaign's entire premise is.
And I was going to ask you about that, supporting it at a broader or national scale. What will it take for other lawmakers to get on board with this, to say no gerrymandering across the board?
Well, what would help is if the Speaker of the House showed some leadership and actually put the bill on the floor for a vote, because I think that has broad support. I have people who come up to me every day and say that they are supportive of the bill. We had a Democrat from North Carolina, Don Davis, who just introduced a very similar bill himself. So there is broad bipartisan support for this. The gerrymandering, redistricting war that is now cascading across the country is extremely unpopular on both sides of the aisle. It doesn't really serve any purpose. It's incredibly destabilizing. It's bad for democracy and bad for representation. So the solution here is to just say, we're not going to do this. But in California, we can, at least make sure that that happens in our own state by not passing Prop 50.
Yeah, obviously taking control of what you can control. I do want to ask you, because people are heading to the polls, and sometimes getting behind that curtain, it can be confusing when you're reading some of this. And I want to put up another post from social media from you as Gavin Newsom, he says, blatantly lied about Prop 50 to meet the press. He said, quote, the maps are in the ballot. They're in front of the voters. Do you see any map in terms of this? Are you concerned about that? Just the exact wording, the language of it, if someone goes in there and might be confused about it?
I am concerned about that because the language they put there on the ballot is not particularly in keeping with the truth and what's actually going to be done here. A more accurate summary would say that this initiative tears up the map that was drawn by our Independent Citizens Commission and replaces it with one drawn by politicians. And it overturns our constitutional ban on gerrymandering and instead institutes one of the most gerrymandered maps in modern history. Princeton University's gerrymander project called this map one of the 2 worst gerrymanders in the last 50 years. They gave the map an F grade. So that's why they don't have the map actually there for you to see on the ballot, because then you'd be like, wow, this is a pretty funny shape for this district. What's going on here? And people would reject it out of hand. Instead, they just give you this sort of, adenine summary like, oh, temporary maps are coming in, without telling you that, that these were maps that were drawn behind closed doors by politicians specifically to serve their own interests.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word temporary because there's also questions if this is obviously going to go away. It's going to be a permanent feature. What initiatives are out there to potentially prevent that? Is this a one-time deal?
Yeah, so I find it very, very hard to believe that if this new map that the politicians have drawn in order to benefit themselves, if it does get adopted, that they're going to simply, throw it out the window in a few years. Nothing is really temporary when it comes to the self-interest of politicians. So I think that if this does pass, it would be very difficult for California to return to a system of fair representation. And so that temporary word, I think, is very misleading at the very least.
Yeah, potentially temporary in California. We'll see what happens. Beyond Representative Kevin Kiley, I do want to ask you, because you posted this saying we voted no on this, and your district might be one of that gets drawn out in terms of this. Was there ever a thought that came across your mind in terms of that, just the platform that you have as a congressman to vote yes on this to continue to do your work potentially as well? Was there ever a thought that crossing your mind voting no meant you might not be a member of Congress?
Well, so voting no would mean that we preserve the current map. And so I'd be able to continue to run to represent the district that I have now. If you vote no, and if you vote yes, and yes passes, and we adopt the super gerrymandered map, then my district would actually be split into 6 different pieces and would go 6 different ways.
Yep.
So, I then have to decide where to run. I think I could still win re-election even under the gerrymandered map, but I'd very much prefer to keep my district intact. I have the most beautiful district in California. So hopefully this thing fails and we can all go on with our lives representing our district as currently drawn.
We'll see what happens tomorrow. Prop 50 on the ballot there in California. I appreciate your time. Obviously, the House not really in session, but you're still doing some great work. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time here on Live Now.
You bet. Thanks for having me.